this short news clip I saw online.
A scene unfolded at Pearson Airport today that could have fooled onlookers.
So today we're having a mock emergency exercise happening. So we're testing our response to an emergency or security situation. So we've got protesters in the back who have been very enthusiastic about playing their roles, and we've been testing our response to it.
Yes, as you can see, people, both volunteers and airport employees, getting into character for the fake protest. The exercise is actually a requirement by Transport Canada. The GTA says it's an important way to test the airport's emergency response.
It's pretty weird in a bunch of ways. The main way is that the government apparently believes the greatest threat to the airport, and that this TV channel, I'm not sure which one it was, claims is a mandatory exercise ordered by the government, Transport Canada, the Toronto Airport Authority. They all think the greatest threat against which they need to prepare and plan is not terrorists, not criminals, but rather peaceful protesters concerned about losing their civil liberties. That's a big threat. That's the emergency in this war game. That's the emergency, and the government wants you to know that's the new threat. And the TV station, I mean, does it even matter whether that's Global News or some other TV station? They're all interchangeable. The TV station was happy to go along with it, not even curious enough to ask a single question, let alone to challenge anything. You have a police drill against peaceful protesters worried about civil liberties. That's what you're doing. Now, I'm on the no-fly list along with millions of other Canadians, so I actually haven't been to the airport in quite a while, but this is what it's like at Toronto's Pearson International Airport, Canada's biggest and busiest airport.
This is my experience flying from Pearson Airport at 6:30 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Air Canada had emailed us to say that if your flight is before 9 a.m. to make sure you get there 3 hours early, which we did. We got there at 3 a.m. and ended up waiting until 4:30 with absolutely nothing happening. We waited in the baggage line until 4:30, just sitting there on the floor, and the lines were just piling up because there's no workers and nothing was open. After we put our bags through baggage claim, we ended up walking through security, not realizing how absolutely insane the lines were, or else we would have probably split into two and made someone else wait in the security line, which I suggest that you do if you're traveling with someone, because this line was absolutely absurd. People were literally running to make sure that they claimed their spot in line. We probably would have had to wait in this line for 2 to 3 hours, and we just didn't have time for that at that point. So we ended up going to the front of the line, and because I had Nexus and my friend didn't, we just asked, can we join the Nexus line? And they said yes. And that's the only reason we made our flight. I don't know how everyone else is doing it.
Yeah, getting there at 3:30 a.m. Nice one. Omar Al-Gabra, the transport minister, who actually used to be on a real no-fly list himself when he was the head of the extremist group called the Canadian Air Federation, by the way. His take on things is, he says the problem at the airport is that Canadian travelers are out of practice. They're rusty. He actually said that. He said the problem was you. It's so bad, even the CBC is complaining. This is a senior Liberal operative and former CBC Senior Vice President, Christine Stewart, married to another senior Liberal activist. She's a global warming jet setter. Don't you dare make her wait on the plane. Sounds like she had to stay on the plane for hours before being allowed off. She says, when the time you wait to deplane at Toronto Pearson makes every flight into Toronto a transatlantic journey, can we get aeroplan points by hours kept on the plane instead of miles traveled? It's very funny. I'm guessing if there's going to be a protest at the airport in the next little while, it's probably going to be by vaccinated jet setters who are stuck for 6 hours in a terminal or stuck on an airplane and not allowed to get off the plane for hours. That's happening too, as Christine Stewart says. I suppose Canadians are too polite to actually protest third world conditions in our country, but I'm guessing that's the most proximate threat. And it's not being fixed anytime soon, obviously. It's a lot easier for Trudeau and his useless cabinet ministers, very few of whom actually did anything real before joining the government, It's easy for them to talk about feminism or global warming or other invisible or even imaginary threats instead of dealing with the bread and butter stuff of running a country, like, an airport that works. Seriously, Trudeau was a trust fund rich kid who just bummed around till he was almost 40. His deputy prime minister, Chrystia Freeland, was a journalist of little consequence. Omar Al-Gabra, like I said, was a radical anti-Semitic leader. Stephen Guilbeault was a professional environmental protester and activist who was convicted of a crime. His predecessor, Catherine McKenna, lifelong activist, UN type. None of these people have actually done anything, fixed anything, led anything, made anything work. They don't know how to fix this airport thing. Seamus O'Regan, perhaps the dumbest man in cabinet. He was a TV announcer who specialized in reading teleprompter text written by other people. These people are a millimeter deep. It's no wonder Canada's in trouble. That thing Trudeau used to do at all his foreign visits of showing off his fancy socks, that got a laugh the first time by world leaders, like a party trick or something. But that's all there was. That's all there is. There's nothing more to the man. There are other atrocious leaders around the world, but it says a lot that even amongst his fellow travelers, like France's Emmanuel Macron or New Zealand's Jacinda Ardern, Trudeau could not get enough support to be elected to the UN Security Council. No one thinks he is a man of consequence. That was an excerpt from my daily TV-style show called The Ezra Levant Show. Each weekday, I do a monologue on the news of the day. Then I interview a fascinating guest. I read some fan mail or hate mail, depends on which I like more. And we end with a video of the day. You can get it all at rebelnewsplus.com.